Hello again. My name's James Byrne. I'm an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a ward and stake historian. In the episode here today, I wanted to discuss about another thing that the polygamists or the polygamous narrative use to try to very confusingly try to push forward the narrative that Joseph Smith was involved in polygamy. But as seen in all the other previous episodes, I believe Joseph Smith was a true prophet of God and a monogamous, always condemning it. So anything they can use to push this polygamous, polygamous narrative. So in today's episode, going to discuss the topic of deeds. And this is quite long, so it might be um, pushed out over, say, 2 episodes or maybe 3, because there's a lot of documents in deeds. And it's murky art, and I want to keep it as simple as possible. So, the first thing regarding this that I'd like to share as we go to our shared screen, we see here there was a historian, and I'll show you in one of the future episodes, a historian called Michelle Stone, and she asked the author of a certain book regarding um, deeds and stuff. And she asks, I'm very interested what you found about land deeds in Nauvoo. Done some work about the economics in Nauvoo, and would like to learn and do more with it. And Mark Tensmeyer replies, I've always said that the land deeds to wives and to Emma is questionable circumstance evidence. As with all circumstantial evidence, you have to look at other causes for the correlation. Be careful about jumping to any conclusions. When William Clayton talks about deeding land to Emma, this is Michelle Stone saying, when William Clayton talks about deeding land to Emma, he never actually says that it was because of polygamy. I was thinking it was happening at the same time as the revelation and surrounding events, but that the two were not necessarily related. Historians have interpreted Clayton's statement about deeding the land as being related to polygamy, but Clayton does not actually say that. So let's start now with the 12th of July 1843, Joseph Smith giving deeds to Emma to discourage her from divorce because of the polygamy. And this, I can tell you, is a false narrative, which many historians have come to conclude that by signing over the lots and the deeds of lands to Emma, it'll discourage Emma from divorcing. But the reason why this is untrue is we'll see now that Hiram Smith was also given deeds on the 12th of July 1843. So let's first see from this link here, um, and there's the sketch by hand. You can see Knight Street, Mulholland Street, Young Street, the lots given out in those areas, then the blocks 70 all the way down, William Marks, Temple Lot, James Adams, Hunter. So they're deeding out to these people the the particular lots that are assigned. Obviously, amongst them is Emma Smith also, and we'll see her temple lot uh, given here. It's a document, 12th day of July, between Joseph Smith, who is the trustee in trust, the first part, and Emma Smith and her children, Frederick, Joseph, Julia, said Joseph Smith, party of the first part of the consideration, sum of 10,000. So lots number 1, 2, and 3 in blocks number 95. So it goes on then to describe about that particular lot. So there's clearly a lot given, deeded to Emma Smith and others there. And that's the document, a long document, original deed. Now on the very same day, let's also view the, in the, as we see here, it's Joseph Smith papers, 12th of July, same day, made and entered into Joseph Smith as sole trustee and trust for the Church of Jesus Christ. Witness said Joseph Smith party to the first in consideration of $10,000 in to him paid, grant and confirmed. Said Hiram Smith party to the second, his heirs and signed forever all that tract or parcel of land situate and being. So it goes on. That's just documents and the other description of the deed itself. But we can clearly see whatever has been going on, these transactions, 12th of July, and then over the following days, are deeding. They're deeding land. Now, back in those days, there was like a church represented to give these lots out, and Joseph Smith being the leader of the church, he would have been the trustee in trust to deed it out to several other, and their experience being having went through the extermination order in leaving Missouri and losing all their lands and their properties and everything, they engaged in this time a recording deeds and all that kind of thing for the members of the church. So at this time, there was a major emphasis on deeding and establish records for the members, and that a similar kind of scenario would not happen to them again, because they lost their land, they lost their properties, and were, you know, compelled to leave for their lives because of the extermination order by the Governor Bloggs. Now, of this deed and the deed Joseph Smith and Emma Smith to Joseph Smith as trustee in trust, the above deed didn't include all the lots, as there is yet blank lots on the map, and unencumbered lots does not mean all available lots were given to Emma. Encumbered is like loaded or impeded in motion, question of burden or difficulties or more specific in this definition for what we're talking about, loaded with debts, encumbered. So unencumbered lot is a lot with no debts on it. Uh, we're going to talk about William Clayton suing Joseph Smith in a minute. But before I go on to say that, Emma Smith, as president of Relief Society, would have been given these lots to give out uh, to the sisters of the Relief Society as she seemed necessary. So an awful lot of this lots given to Emma was given to her as a church assignment to pass them on to others. And we'll see more of that in the coming slides. Right, we're talking about, that's the link for what I'm talking about here in the Joseph Smith papers. William Clayton suing Joseph Smith. 21st of October, 1843, William Clayton versus E. Rhodes. Joseph Smith, one of the defendants to the bill of William Clayton, complainant. So the fall of 1843, William Clayton, apparently acting on Joseph Smith's instructions, sued Joseph Smith as well as the family and estate of Erie Rhodes in the Circuit Court of Hancock County to secure the title of Joseph Smith's farm. 2 years earlier, in September 1841, Rhodes had sold Joseph Smith. So it was a promissory note. At around this time too, there was Joseph Smith, his he had a very busy schedule, and there was a time there where he was in hiding from the sheriff to prevent him being extradited back to Missouri. So William Clayton is doing the deals on behalf of Joseph Smith. And in this document, 22nd of October 1842, William Clayton, acting as Joseph Smith's agent, executed land transaction with Shaughnessy Robinson. Time of this transaction, Joseph Smith was at James Taylor's home in Henderson County, trying to avoid arrest and extradition to Missouri. In a letter to the church read publicly 4th of September, Joseph Smith noted that while he was hiding, he had left my affairs with agents and clerks who would transact all business in the prompt and proper manner. Joseph Smith's closest scribe, Clayton, assumed many of Joseph Smith's financial clerical responsibilities, and he seems to have managed the entire 22nd of October transaction with Robinson, explicitly identifying himself as Joseph Smith's agent, signing on Joseph Smith's behalf. So you can read more about it in that Joseph Smith papers link. And there another William Clayton transactions, known to all men that present that I, Joseph Smith, as trustee and trust for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for consideration of $1,500 to me in hand paid, the receipt thereof is hereby acknowledged with it, those present to sign my right, title, and interfere to the within instrument to William Clayton. And that's the transaction there. So at the time of this transaction, Joseph Smith, as we said, in Henderson's County, trying to avoid arrest and extradition, and Clayton resume any of the financial, clerical responsibilities. And William Clayton explicitly identifies himself as Joseph Smith's agent. Now, we're going to speak about, because of being that agent, he goes on to register a deed after Joseph Smith's death. Now, there was a deed to Emma Smith and others, 12th of July 1843. This particular version was copied the 8th of July 1844 in Hancock County, Illinois, Deed Records, Volume M404, unidentified handwriting. So there was something odd going on here, that the original deed, 12th of July 1843, was copied and registered then the 8th of July 1844. And why so, you may wonder? Well, let's look at William Clayton's journal, 7th to 8th July 1844. I was at the council, the brethren had agreed not to appoint a trustee until the 12 came home, that I should act in the place of trustee to receive property until one was appointed. 8th of July, at the temple all day, Emma came up. She also objected to the conclusion of the council last evening and says there must be a trustee appointed this week on account of the situation of business. Although Emma was caring for her family, pregnant and a widow, she would not be able to go to Cartridge. Brigham Young, William Clayton refused to give Emma access to the records. William Clayton journal records a different narrative. 2nd July 1844. Went to see Emma. She's in trouble because mother Lucy Mack Smith is making disturbance about the property in Joseph's hands. Mother Smith wants Samuel to move into Nauvoo and take the patriarch's office, and says the church ought to support him. There is considerable danger if the family begins to dispute about the property that Joseph's creditors will come forward and use up all the property there is. If they will keep still, there is property enough to pay the debts and plenty left for other uses. I have much talk with them on the subject. 3rd of July 1844, at the Temple office, Emma was sent for me and Alpheus Cutler and Reynolds Cahoon. We had conversation with Esquire James Wood on the subject. Emma has counselled Esquire Wood on the subject. PM at the Temple office, and after went to dig up the records. Water had got into the place where they were, and they were damaged. And the 4th of July, I went to Emma's and assisted Esquire Wood to examine Joseph's affairs. Situation looks gloomy. Property is chiefly in the name of the trustee in trust, while the obligations are considered personal. Woods advised Emma to have all the deeds recorded at Cartridge, for he says our recorder's office is not legal. This will cause trouble and much dissatisfaction. So what you will find here is that the same deed was recorded twice 31st of December 1841, the 17th of March 1842. So there's the fact that double registering the deeds. The first question you will wonder, why so? 17th of March 1842, and you can see here the particular document regarding the transaction. And this is a deed to Julia Smith and others. So as I said, the deed to Julia M. Smith and others, 31st of December 1841. Okay, 31st December 1841, which is what you see here, and that's the paper, actually written up document. But then we go on to see that this version is copied into the 8th of July 1844. And what do we see here? Revised and deed to Julia and others. William Clayton, acting for Joseph Smith after his death, Emma would not have been able to record this deed. Printed form with manuscript editions in the handwriting of William Clayton, signatures Orson Hyde and Melinda Hyde, witnessed by William Clayton, 10th of February 1843. William Clayton on behalf of Joseph Smith, Shaughnessy Robinson. The document contains notations by Clayton identifying when the deed was recorded in Arvaux, Illinois. Notations by Shaughnessy Robinson identifying when the deed was recorded in a Hancock County deed book. An additional notation by John S. Fulmer records the transfer of the property to Hiram Kimball between 1846 and 48. After Kimball purchased the property, he was apparently given the earlier deed. Document and other papers in the possession of Kimball descendants were donated to the church history department. So Emma never had this deed and would not be able to send these deeds to Cartridge, 8th of July 1844. It was in the possession of the church, not Emma. So what am I getting at here? That, as we said from the start, if deeds were given to Emma by Joseph Smith to pacify her and prevent or discourage her from divorcing Joseph Smith because of this polygamy doctrine, and given then deeds to her, these deeds that she's meant to have had, she couldn't ever have possessed, because 8th of July 1844, she couldn't physically go to Cartridge to register them. Deed from Daniel H. and Eliza Robinson Well, 4th of February 1843. William Clayton, acting as Joseph Smith's clerk, certified the deed on or after 8th of July 1844, the deed was docketed by Clayton, who served as scribe for Joseph Smith, 42 to 1844, and as Templar recorder, 42 to 1846. The document was also docketed by Thomas Bullock, served as Joseph Smith's scribe from 1843 to 44, as clerk of the church historian, a recorder from 1845 to 1865. By 1973, the document had been included in Joseph Smith collection at the Church Historical Department. The document's earlier dockets and inclusion in the Joseph Smith collection by 1973 indicate continuous institutional custody. Now, a person by the name of Susan Easton Black compiled Nauvoo land deeds showing Joseph Smith we're given grantee to Ebenezer Robinson, block 155. Now, as we're saying, we're trying to show here uh, was Emma the only beneficiary of deeds to um, soften her heart to not divorcing her husband because of polygamy? No. Joseph Smith, being the trustee in trust for the church, was given out leases and lots to others. Ebenezer Robinson, he gives Emma, as you see these blocks here, and she herself then, grantor, Emma Smith, widow of Joseph Smith, grants to Mercy Thompson. She gives to uh, Benjamin Van Court. So Emma is giving these deeds out to other members, presumably. Deed to John Smith. This was signed by Joseph Smith himself. Now, bear in mind, this is what Joseph Smith's signature looked like. But William Clayton, writing for Joseph Smith, you can see a different J. See there, the J is very narrow. Well, Joseph Smith, it's a big, broad J. Conclude William Clayton was putting Joseph Smith's signature on several deeds. That is not Joseph Smith's signature. Again, look at those signatures, the J, maybe the S, and look at that, J and S. There's clearly, if William Clayton is trying to forge, he's doing a bad job. So Joseph Smith gave deeds to men and women, Ebenezer and Elenda Moore Wiggins. Now let's go on to speak about William Clayton's journal, 12th of July. This AM wrote a revelation consisting of 10 pages on the order of the priesthood, showing the designs of Moses, Abraham, David, and Solomon having many wives and concubines. After it was wrote, President Joseph and Hiram's presented it and read it to Emma, who said she did not believe a word of it and appeared very rebellious. Joseph told me to deed all the unencumbered lots to Emma and the children. Appears much troubled about Emma. Thursday, 13th, AM, Joseph sent for me, and when arrived, he called me to his private room. There stated an agreement they had mutually entered into. They both stated their feelings on many subjects and wept considerably. May the Lord soften her heart, that she may be willing to keep and abide his holy law. 15th of July, made deed for half of the steam ship boat Maid of Iowa from Joseph to Emma. Also a deed to Emma for over 60 city lots. So the narrative in William Clayton's journal is making out, as we said, that Emma is very troubled and distraught about the thought of polygamy being brought out, and then Joseph has to sign off a load of these deeds to comfort her and gives her half the price of the boat called the Maid of Iowa. But deed showing Joseph Smith leasing the Maid of Iowa to David Hollister, and that's his signature there. That's the link. So the lease was all ready to David Hollister. And now we're going on to speak about some of the other administrators of Joseph Smith's estate after he died. So what I'm trying to get and understand in this episode is the fact that there is peculiarities going on. We've seen in prior episodes that William Clayton's narrative, his documents, we can't trust anyway. There's discrepancies. His journals are not contemplative, like written for that day and time. A lot of them were put together later on, and we can see in these documents too that dates signing up don't look right. Why is deeds put in twice? He's trying to make this deed that, right, Emma will give the deed to, and that'll pacify her, and she'll be comforted regarding the polygamy thing, because she's very distraught about it. All of these things are false, and we're going to go into more of this in the next episode. So I'll finish this episode. No use making it too long. So bye for now, and thank you for listening.